So at first, I thought that this was ironically the longest episode we've had yet, but with the least amount of answers. But as I went through it a second time, the good old second round for WandaVision episodes, it really makes a difference. I realized that we actually did get a lot of answers, but just not answers to the questions that we were asking. So I'm a little nervous about the show's ability to wrap things up in a satisfying manner with only one episode left to go. As I said in my live reaction, it better be a freaking long finale. And I'm a little disappointed in what seemed to be a number of red herrings that have been strewn about the sitcom, the episodes throughout the season, almost making it impossible to play along. And quite frankly, at the end of this breakdown, I'll list the questions. I'll put them up here. We have yet to be answered, as you can see. It was a bit of a wild goose chase. I don't think we needed to spend our time on that. But I guess we're partially to blame because we forgot two golden rules when it comes to Kevin Feige, and that's that he likes to keep it simple and that he likes to base things heavily on the comics. He really does not go off script, off book, off comic book. And that continues to be the case. As one of you pointed out, I wasn't familiar with this comic, but I quickly looked it up after you mentioned it. Someone tweeted me about the Vision Quest storyline in West Coast Avengers, and that's clearly what's going on with the end credit sequence. And when he showed up, a number of you were like, Ultron, and I was like, that's a good idea. But no, let's remember, keep it simple, base it on the comics. And I think that keeping it simple means that it's not Ultron, and basing it on the comics, in the comics, that's a soulless husk for Vision, which means that's the new Vision, the one that Wanda made, that's his ticket out of the hex. He's going to ride that thing out of there. And so that's how they're going to be able to keep Vision around, even though they were able to have the earlier scene where we were like, why can't he leave? Well, this is how they're going to fix that. I mean, we were wondering if this was going to introduce mutants when it looks like it's just going to introduce witches to the MCU. I'm not going to believe it if that's the case, but that's the direction we seem headed in. And then also Wanda gives birth to New Vision. She gives birth to her husband. They are an unusual couple. And as catchy as her theme song might be, it was not Agatha all along. I can't believe that nobody brought that up. They were like, I love the song, everybody, but wait a minute, it actually wasn't Agatha? So the song's not true. So you're like, well, why did you make me sing it then? I mean, she's able to independently move throughout Wanda's, mega spell, which Agnes reveals in this episode. That's how she's able to talk to Vision at the outskirts of the spell where everybody else is frozen. But she didn't do this. It truly is Neighborhood of M. Wanda is this revealed in a very compelling scene. Wow, I loved it. Even though it totally negated a lot of the stuff that came before, but it was all Wanda. It wasn't a misdirect when someone said, when his coworker said, you got to break me, you got to stop her. She's doing all this. The she was Wanda. It was Wanda. Remember, Kevin Feige keeps it simple. When someone says she, they're talking about the star of the show. Although I am happy to say that they continue with the simultaneous science and magic storylines, one for Wanda and one for Vision, that I picked up on a couple of episodes ago. And so we have our two villains. And again, it's keeping it simple. The magic, unless someone pops, I'm not saying Mephisto or Nightmare, that's not going to show up in the final episode. But, boy, the window of opportunity is closing. But Agatha is the magic villain and Hayward is the science villain. It's that simple. Feige. He probably has that stitched on a pillow somewhere. All right, so let's start out. And I liked that the intro started with the purple and the black magic powers for Agatha. I thought that was great. And I have a theory about all the different power colors. Doctor Strange usually does orange whenever he's used the time stone. Wanda has red. Agnes has purple. The witches that we see in the origin have blue. And it makes me feel like they're kind of like representative of the Infinity Stones. And that's maybe they're tapping into nature. And that's why the hexagon is the is the shape for their spells and their magic, because a hexagon is the shape that's found so much in nature. So I'm wondering if maybe that's something to do with it. That's like bringing back the rainbow motif that was so popular with the Thanos story. All right, so I just think that's interesting. All right, so we get a very quick flashback, but I believe actually very important in sowing the seeds for the finale. So Salem, Massachusetts, 1693. Damn, Agatha, you look good. I'm so used to calling her Agnes. But anyway, we see her being pulled along by hooded figures. And at first, we make some assumptions because of what we know about Salem. And we think that she is a witch who's being persecuted. Look, it's early misogynism. All right. So, but then we find out that it's witch on witch violence, and that Agatha cannot be controlled. She's, and she keeps calling this person mother, but I believe she's the mother of the coven. She's not her actual mother. So it's revealed that these are witches and not, humans accusing people of witchcraft because they have magic handcuffs and they use their blue magic. So I love this location, by the way. Whoever found that, I hope that's real. Maybe it's all CGI. But, having that beautiful waterfall in the background of this clearing, I'm like, this is a nice setup. I like it. So and I love the de-aging, by the way, that they did on Kathryn Hahn. I mean, remember when it started out like in X-Men Last Stand, and you're like, what happened to you, Professor X and Magneto? Speaking of X-Men, now I don't think they're coming back. Oh, this is crazy. We'll see. When they discuss Fietro, fake Pietro, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But the de-aging here is incredible. I mean, it's even better than what we just recently saw in The Irishman. Maybe it helps that this is a night scene, but I'm mighty impressed. Good job, VFX team. They said they did a lot of VFX work on this show, and boy, did they. So she's trying to explain herself, and she's like, hey, I have a thirst for knowledge. And I think that's actually pretty interesting going forward, because hopefully they don't get rid of Agatha Harkness. I hope she doesn't get killed the next episode, because that would be an interesting villain going forward. That Agatha has a quest for knowledge, and she's not afraid to use it, right? I like her being almost like a yin to Doctor Strange's yang. Responsible magic versus irresponsible magic. I think that's pretty cool. So they're like, you've stolen knowledge above your pay grade, and you've practiced the dark magic. I'm like, oh, keep talking. So they're like, we're gonna just kill you. And so they use this blue magic, and I'm like, I wonder why you chose blue. I really would like to know where all these color choices are coming from. So, because when I think evil magic, I don't think necessarily purple. Maybe that's on the way to the chaos magic, because as we've discussed, blue and red and purple's the medium, the two colors. So maybe Agatha's the step between or magic that's done in order and chaos magic. Oh, that's pretty interesting, actually. Maybe that's what it is. I solved it myself. No thanks to WandaVision. All right. So I thought it was interesting that she was glowing red inside. What's with that? Why, does that activate her purple powers, come to think of it? So she's glowing red inside. They're like, we're gonna microwave you, basically. And then she starts to turn their magic purple and suck out their power. And I'm like, oh, so this is interesting, because I bet she tries to do that to Wanda in the final episode. She's like, I'm gonna drink your milkshake. I think that's the second time I've used that. I love that scene in There Will Be Blood to talk about WandaVision. But she starts to realize that things are going her way, and I think that she's gonna want to drain the power out of Wanda, but also Billy, who, by the way, is now also a warlock. We have witches and warlocks here, people. So she breaks free, and she sucks not only her fellow witches dry, and you can see her magic now is black and purple, which that's why I got that screen grab. I thought that was interesting that she's already a mix of the two. And then the Mother Witch, that's funny. The Mother Witch, I like that her power manifests in a crown. Although we see a traditional crown made out of material in Wanda's flash forward when she touches the Mind Stone in a few moments. But I like the idea that, Wanda wouldn't wear a crown, but that it would manifest whenever she uses her powers. I think that's a cool idea. I hope they kind of go with it. Maybe it'll just make her headpiece glow. I'm excited about it. So this lady goes full witch. She's like, I'm gonna take care of this boy, but she doesn't. And Agatha uses her powers. This reminds me, we recently saw something else where, does anyone remember where, the energy color changed, between the two? So we see it here, and she drains this lady free, and then she takes her jewelry. What an affront. And here you can see it's like all different, it's all different kinds. It's the blue, purple, and the black. So she's putting on a real light show. And then she flies off. She can fly. I love it. I can fly. And then we go right back to where we are now after the origin story. And she's talking to Senor Scratchy. Can Senor Scratchy talk to her? Senor Scratchy, it turns out, is pretty evil, as we find out a little bit later when he eats that bug. And she's like, yeah, she had no idea who she was. It's so nice to finally meet her. And so then Wanda gets schooled in magic, right? Which is interesting because in the comics, Agatha Harkness was a mentor. And so Agatha's like, whoa, these are the fundamentals. Why don't you know anything? And because she's really confused as to who this is. She thinks she's dealing with another witch, not the raw, unbridled power that is Wanda, which she will find out by the end of the episode. So that's the whole point of this episode, Agatha trying to find out who she's dealing with. And that's a very good line, or a very good exchange, when Wanda says, who are you? And Agatha says, who are you? Let's find out. So that's great. So she's talking about the fact that, Wanda can't cast any spells. She can't use any magic here because of the runes that are in this hexagon room. Whatever witch, casts the runes is the only one who can do magic in that space. But the fact that she can stop Wanda from using her magic, to me, says that Wanda is not a mutant. Wanda is a witch. This is really firmly rooting her as a witch. And maybe why not, I guess? Blade's going to introduce vampires. Maybe one of them can touch an infinity stone and get juiced up. But again, this doesn't seem to be introducing mutants, but instead witches. It's quite the zig when we were expecting a zag, but that seems to be the direction that this is going in, which I guess that would make sense because maybe there are only mutants in a different reality. So in this multiverse or this version, Wanda Maximoff is just simply a witch. How would you feel about that? I guess I'd be okay with it because I want new X-Men. So I will allow it. Although that doesn't mean they can't still come over from the other reality. We'll talk about that in a moment. So anyway, that's what she's establishing. She says, you have to abide by which rules? And I'm like, does she? And apparently she does. So then she's saying, you fell for Fietro, fake Pietro, which is a fabulous name. That Agatha, she's very, very good. She's very good. She has a second career maybe in advertising. And she's like, no, I didn't revive your dead brother because necromancy was out of the question because the body was too far away. I don't think that was it. Agatha can teleport, as she reveals later on in this episode. So she could obviously just go get it. I think it was rotted up and full of holes, as she also mentions. So she says, I was mind controlling someone and I could see and hear everything they saw and heard. But you're like, okay, but who were you controlling, Agatha? She still didn't specify. Was that just someone in town who happens to be Evan Peters? Then why would you cast Evan Peters? They only have one episode left to explain this, and it better be good. Okay, so we just got a little bit more on fake Pietro, but then Agatha reveals that the whole reason she showed up to town was because WandaVision was already in progress. The show had already started. And she was drawn to the afterglow, she says, of so many spells cast at once. And then she says, this is magic on autopilot. And she wants to know how it's been done. Because look, she's been doing magic for a really long time, and she doesn't know how this could be done. So that's very cool. And she gives a little demonstration to show how good she is. And we were all like, oh, is that bug? Are you going to turn it into Mephisto? And she's like, no, it's just a bug. And we're like, God damn it. So it's just a bug, and then she does first mind control on it. She just really embarrasses it. Then she turns it into a bird and feeds it to Senor Scratchy. Oh my God, that's not Mephisto for sure. So I was kind of wondering why we even did all that, to be honest with you. Because it would have been brilliant since he showed up first as a fly in the comics. And the devil would tie in with this whole witch theme because that's where they get their powers from. But, let's see what Kevin Feige decides to do. So I love the shots of Wanda as Agatha's prisoner. I think it's just so cool. So she's like, oh yeah, we're gonna find out what happened. And she takes one of her Wanda's strands of hair and she uses it to cast a spell. I love it, to open these doors. And she says, let's watch some real reruns, which I thought was a fantastic line. I think they really missed an opportunity for a game show motif here. What's behind door number 1 or 2? I guess it's not a sitcom, but it really fits in with the television angle. And I would have loved Agnes to have said, well, now I want to change the channel to a game show. Oh, that would have been great. Oh, well. All right. So anyway, we go through these cool doors, with amplified by Agatha's magic. And then we go into, and so, Wanda's like, why would I participate in this stupid game? And she's like, you want your kids back? And she's like, okay. Good motivation. So we start out in the origin scene back in Sokovia, right? And many of you, when the father showed up, I thought this was funny in the live reaction, many of you were like, that's not Magneto. Further proof that she's not a mutant. Now, obviously, maybe that's not her real dad. Maybe that's, just the guy who filled in after Magneto hightailed it out of there. Maybe. But I mean, it's starting to get too complicated. Again, it seems that she's just a witch. So her father sold sitcoms on the streets of Sokovia. I'm like, couldn't they just enjoy watching them? Does he also have to sell them for money? And they're like, shut up, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, sometimes you guys keep it simple. Sometimes you make it ridiculously complicated. And why didn't we do Who's the Boss? All right, so anyway, they're her parents, two normal human beings, damn it. And outside it's a mess. But they turn the volume up real loud and they watch the sitcom together. And they watch Wanda's favorite, Dick Van Dyke, which is why that's where all this ends up starting from. And that is really a touching scene. I thought it was really great. And then they showed the love between Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. And they really focused on Mary Tyler Moore, who just looked so great. She really glowed on that show. It made her a star. Dick Van Dyke was already a star, but Mary Tyler Moore was a new discovery, and she became like an overnight sensation, and you can see why. And I thought that, Elizabeth Olsen did a fantastic job on the show having that same glow. And maybe it's for the glow from love, but it's wonderful, which I think helped Dick Van Dyke too. So this was really well edited. They had the close-up of Wanda just really enjoying it. And then we all were shocked on the live viewing when the bomb hit, just like we'd heard in Age of Ultron. And I tried to get a better screen grab of it, but it was so traumatic for me to keep having to, I was like, that scene in Elf where he's testing the Jack-in-the-Boxes? That was me trying to get a screen grab of this darn bomb dropping. So I stopped when I got this one. I was like, I can't watch the scene anymore. It keeps making me jump and gasp. All right, so I love the shot of the big Stark bomb just sitting in their living room, which again, of course, was the toaster. And it was a missed opportunity. Many of you thought that the actors in all the commercials were her parents, but no, it just seems they're people in town who she drafted to be in her commercials. You will be in my subconscious. And they're like, that is a big role. I'll take it. We'll see what happens with using the magic and, the star. Because, come to think of it, thinking of commercials, the claymation one where one of the children, I suspect it's Billy, starved by not using his magic. Maybe the shark is Agatha and she wants to eat the magic. And so maybe she'll try and drain the children first. The children of Nexus beings, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but the children of Nexus beings are supposed to be even more popular than the parent. So, interesting. But anyway, that's the toaster. It wasn't the parents in the commercials. So they're stuck there. And while they're there, Wanda can see the sitcom. And she's like, you know what? This will be like a sitcom. When the episode is over, it will be revealed to all have been a bad dream. And that apparently inspires her to inadvertently cast a hex, a probability hex. That's so important. We'll talk about that in just a second. But I want to say, she does do the hand movement. So I don't know why wonder what circumstances she would explain that she was doing the hand movement. But anyway, enter Agatha, who is our narrator, who will help explain this to us. And Agatha says, I see a baby witch who used a probability hex to make sure that bomb didn't explode for 2 days, because Wanda said she felt it was just a dud. And by the way, I know some of you said that Kevin Feige has said in the past that they were mutants and they had powers beforehand, but I don't see any even nod to Fietro having any kind of speed power. So I don't think that could possibly be true. Maybe he touched the Mind Stone after Wanda, and so it was nice to maybe the Mind Stone was nice to Fietro because it knew it was her brother. Because, I'm not seeing, if it was the case that they were mutants and they were just both augmented by the Mind Stone, well then he would be showing some kind of speed powers here, but he doesn't. That's really, really important as well. So, Agatha is saying, you used a probability hex, and I like that because in the comics, that was Wanda's mutant power. Wanda was not a witch in the comics. That was just her code name, although Kevin Feige, again, seems to have decided to make it literal. She had a little crossover with witchdom in the early days of the comics, not so much in some of the more recent ones. It was just all hex power. It was a mutant power. But it was called the probability hex, so I liked that nod. But I like also calling her a baby witch. That's adorable. All right, so then she's like, I need more answers. Through the next door. And this is a Hydra door. So Wanda's got to keep going because she wants her children. And then we see the experiments. Anyway, I like when she enters the room and she says, Wanda Maximoff volunteer. That's right. She volunteered for this. That's how desperate she is. That's how deeply unhappy she was. But at least she still had her brother. She didn't know how bad things could get. So they're like, okay, touch it. This has killed everyone else, but hey, you got nothing to live for. But then the stone's like, hey, stranger, and comes out. Now the question is, does the stone recognize her? Does she inadvertently do this to the stone? Again, come on, let's try to explain this a little bit better, especially since you're not giving us enough clues to solve it on our own, apparently. So the stone, for some reason, comes out, the Mind Stone, and it's like, hey, what's up? And she touches it, and it's a very beautiful, moving scene, the way it was filmed. And it explodes and changes color. It's like, hey, my real color is yellow. And although it shows itself, I guess, to these guys, but it's so bright, they don't quite see what happens. And we'll talk about the security footage in a moment. But I loved this scene. She looks so emaciated, and it really does look like she really needs a miracle. And here it is! She sees a vision of herself. A vision? I like that. And yellow actually, very much Vision's power because it's yellow when it's implanted in the middle of his head later on. But I love that she's wearing her traditional outfit here. She looks amazing. She looks so good. I wonder why, if she did see this, she didn't put the hat on earlier, right? I was like, she's like, no, it's too much. I'm not, dare I? No, I can't do it. You'd think if this came to you literally in a vision, you would make that hat because she had the rest of the outfit. But anyway, then she collapses. She's like, oh, so cool. I couldn't take it. Coolness overload. So she collapses, and then she's watching the Brady Bunch. It's very nice of them to give her sitcoms. Sokovia loved sitcoms, apparently. They're like, heck, we watch them too in here. Some guy was selling them on the street. Oh, is that your dad? Sorry. And then they're trying to watch the security footage to see exactly what happened, and they can't see it. So apparently, Wanda's been editing security footage for a while now. Although Hayward has an edit machine as well, as we'll discuss later on. All right, so then but first she goes to this scene. And when I watched this the first time, I hated it. Because I was like Agatha. I was like, I want answers. Don't take the valuable episode time with this junk. But the second time that I watched it, I saw what Wanda saw, and I saw a really beautiful scene. And look, Bryan Cranston got to be in the MCU. So I love them bonding over this show. And he's like, oh, is it funny that he got hurt? And she's like, of course he's not hurt. And he's like, how do you know? And she's like, it's not that kind of show. What a line! What a line! Right? That she's like, and here people can't get her. That's why she decided to put herself in a sitcom. So then they have a really beautiful exchange where she says that the only thing that will bring her comfort is seeing him again, aka Fietro, who just died, which helps explain why she buys Agatha's ruse so easily later on. She just wants to see him again. I was hoping we were going to see Aaron Taylor Johnson at some point, but it's not looking like he's going to show up, damn it. And then they have this thing where I like the contrast. They really are a yin and yang couple themselves, magic and science. And then here she says she's lost everyone, and he shares that he's never had anyone. So I love that. They both come to aloneness from different points, which is really cool. And then he says something really beautiful. He says, grief is love persevering. I think that's great. And it's very important when she gives birth to him later on. So that line plants the seed for that. But then, as Agatha points out, she loses Vision, the one thing that was able to cheer her up. So then what happens? She's lost everything. And so we finally get to some new stuff, because that, of course, was from Civil War. Well, we never saw that scene, but, and then we start to go back to WandaVision, and we go to SWORD headquarters. And we find out that Hayward is a liar, as we suspected. So she comes in here, and I wonder how close she was to Monica marching in here. Hayward's like, everybody loves to march into my office. So she's very nice. She's polite this whole time. Here she is politely checking in with security, being like, I just want to give him a funeral. And it makes me wonder if this is after Tony's funeral. She was like, that was nice. And we didn't really have a body. We just had his, what did happen to Tony's body? They just had his arc reactor, which they put in they gave it a little mini Viking funeral. Like, where was this corporal form? I wonder. Maybe that's a question for a future Marvel movie. But she's like, Tony had a nice funeral. I'm his next of kin. I just want to do it for him. And they're like, oh, you can go in. And she does a little bit of a show off breaking in. But for the most part, she was let in. Hayward said, send her in, because he wants to bring Vision back online. So he decides to really pull on the old heartstrings to try not to jumpstart Wanda so she can jumpstart Vision. So, boy, this is unusually cruel. And I like that they created like techno blood. They were like, it's Frankenstein's lab down here, man. And she's like, oh my God, it's his disembodied head. Stop it. Stop filing him, standing him. And she's like, I just want him back. I just want him to have him. And he's like, and then he really, I thought it was great the way this was written. Very good script, even though it's not giving me anything that I want. Hayward's like, not everyone has the power to bring their loved one back online. Oh, I'm sorry, back to life. And I'm like, oh, way to play your cards, way to show your hand. And then she's like, I can't do that. And he's like, well, you can't take 3 billion of vibranium out of here just to drop it in the ground. And she's like, touche. So she goes down there and she's like, and he's like, let her go. I need this footage for later. So she goes, and I thought this was really beautiful. At first, I thought she was going to try and bring him back online, but she just feels around in there. And I thought it was really touching when she says, you're not in here. Like, he's not even here. There's nothing to say goodbye to. It's just his lifeless husk. Very important for the end credit sequence because he needs a soul, which she's about to manifest over in Westview. So it's Vision. It's not Vision versus Vision. It's the same Vision, but he's just been split. He's got his soul in Westview by magic, and then science has brought back his body. Oh, so the two things will intervene. The two storylines will come together. Love it! So that's a beautiful, horrible parting shot when you really see just how he's been torn apart. I don't know why they had to have the extra leg. I would have just left it the way it was with his head and his limbs and his torso. They're like, nope, and we also took his leg in half. So then she goes to the parking lot. She doesn't even fly away. That's how defeated Wanda is. And we're like, what's that envelope? So then she drives to Westview. Who the hell is the Witness Protection Program person? Maybe that's Dottie. Oh, it's so frustrating. Maybe that's why she wasn't on the board. So anyway, we see the cast, right? There's Herb, who looks the most different, by the way. So kudos to the makeup team, hair and makeup team, for doing such a good job transforming him week to week. I like that her car is red, as some of you pointed out. I thought that was really funny. That's her color. And then you see everybody in the town. Speaking of sitcoms, I've been rewatching Friends. I just recently finished, as you know, and that was Phoebe's brothers. I can't believe I forgot Giovanni Ribisi. That was her husband's wife on the show, so I think that's funny. And that's even the mailman. He's not a nefarious person. He's just a regular guy in town. So she pulls up, and at first I thought that she was going to the other house behind her. That's a great shot. This looks like a car commercial. Very sad car commercial. And then it's just a lot. It's just an empty lot. And Vision got this deed, and you can see written on it, it says Wanda Maximoff and the Vision. I would love that realtor scene where the realtor's like, oh, and who do I make this out to? And that's very nice that he put both their names on it. And then he wrote to grow old in V. And I have to tell you, this is the one thing that didn't ring true to me, because he's a freaking robot. He would have robot penmanship. I don't know why it looks so handwritten. I mean, I think it would be touching that it would be like, in a computerized format. But I think he would he would have perfect writing. You maybe even laser it on there. So that's the one thing I really didn't like in the episode, and I thought was the production did a bad job. So, and also, by the way, I don't know why Vision bought a house in such a town that's, let's just say, not doing very well. That's in need of a sitcom makeover itself. I mean, I guess the town kind of reflects her mental state, but I think he was meaning to cheer her up. I think he should have broke part of himself off and sold that vibranium to get a better home. All right, so anyway, he doesn't want to be a weapon anyway. He's like, hey, Bonnie, what part of me is a weapon? Let's get rid of that and sell it on the market so I can buy a better house. So she goes literally into the empty frame, breaks down, and explodes in grief and magic in an incredible sequence. She's just so powerful and also so out of control. So it's just coming from her soul, which I think is so cool. So you see it just expanding. So it is all her, and she literally builds this house around her, and it's all in black and white. I thought that was so cool. And then it explodes out of the house, the energy, and transforms the town. I thought that was just so well done. And then this is where things got really cool. Then she starts to expel a yellow energy, which of course is the same color of the Mind Stone when she interacted with it and when it was on Vision's head. So that's what's going on here. So I think that she created not only Vision, but I think she might have created a new Mind Stone. So she did create a new Infinity Stone. So that's powerful, baby. So I love this. This is like, you can see, they used the sequence when they were just doing this, the motions for the trailer to throw us off, but this is the actual scene. So she really does look like she's giving birth to him, even the look on her face and everything, which I think is a little creepy, but hey, they're a crazy couple. And then I like that he's sentient right away. You can see him looking at his own hand being like, what's happening happening here, boy? And so then she's like, what? And she's still in color, and her fantasy world is all around her. And I think that's really beautiful as well. And she doesn't quite register because she's still in color. And she walks forward, and as she does, she literally steps into her own fantasy and just loses herself to it. And then he recognizes her, and he says, welcome home. It's so beautiful. And then they kiss on the sofa, and when they part, you can see Wanda watching them, being like, oh yeah, that was a crazy day. All right, so then Agatha cuts the whole thing, and they reveal the actual set where they filmed those scenes, which I think is cool. That's where the actual audience got to sit, who signed non-disclosures and kept to them for the most part. And she's like, bravo. And then she disappears, and we hear Wanda's children crying, and she runs outside onto the street, where we see Agatha in her true form, looking kind of Doctor Strange-like. I have to say her costume was a wee bit of a letdown for me, but I like the horrificness of this image with these children on leashes around their necks, which I think is as close as we're going to get to the really cool picture I've been showing you every week of, when the twins were being repossessed, their souls. So I also like that her fingers are black and then purple energy around them, her fingertips. It's really cool. So Wanda's like, I'll save you, don't worry, babies. And but Agatha's like, I know what you are. And we're like, great, finally, let's hear it. And she says, you have no idea how dangerous you are. You're supposed to be a myth of being capable of spontaneous creation. Now we're all like, a Nexus being? And they are also, that was the commercial from last week. Or the week before. It's all starting to run together, but that was our last commercial, which was a Nexus being. The TVA, aka the Timekeepers, are supposed to keep an eye on Nexus beings, and their offspring, as I said, are even more powerful than they are. And there are multiple Nexus beings throughout the multiverse, and they have different kinds of powers in the comics. One of them, by the way, is necromancy. So where's that person? They can maybe bring back Fietro, the real Fietro. And one of them has hex power, and that's, of course, Wanda. And I thought, for a moment, I thought maybe they would be the villains going forward, and, Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange 2. But no, Agatha doesn't call her a Nexus being. Maybe she'll have a subtitle next week. But instead, Agatha says, you are using chaos magic, Wanda, and that makes you the Scarlet Witch. So this is a being that Agatha has read about. And so that's who Wanda has, it's like a prophecy fulfilled. And I wonder about Scarlet Witch. Is that hearkening back to the Scarlet Letter, which, of course, comes from the same time period that Agatha is supposed to come from? That's an interesting way to come to the Scarlet aspect of it. So I think that's pretty interesting. And I also much appreciate that they finally gave Kathryn Hahn a really nice makeup job, because her close-ups this episode were driving me crazy. I was like, will someone give that woman some foundation? But she looks great here. Even though, again, I feel her costume is a wee bit of a letdown. So that's the end, and then we go, thankfully, I think this end credit sequence really did a lot to make this episode worth our time. So that's the magic ending, and here's our next step in the science situation. So there's Hayward being like, I got to get in there. And they're like, we're ready, sir. And that's why you wanted this drone. It had some of her power, which is able to, is what they need to literally jump. They're like hooked up some cables to him, some jumper cables from this drone to Vision. And so they're going to start him up. And I don't know why he's white. I mean, it does come from the comic that you guys mentioned, but I don't know how Hayward was able to do this. I mean, I don't know how they were able to put him back together at that level of intricacy. I mean, they really made a mess out of him. But he's white. He's like this cream-colored thing, and he does come back online, although he looks like he has an arc reactor in his forehead. It's like a totally different look. And, he seems kind of evil. He looks down at his hand. He's like, oh, excellent, back online, which I can understand is why some of us thought Ultron. But I'm telling you, I think he's going to be a soulless, and so maybe in that regard, evil, very, very task-oriented for whatever Hayward tells him to do. But I think he's a husk for Vision. As I said, he's Vision's ticket out of the hex. I don't know why when Vision was trying to come out, he's not Ultron. I don't think he is. Why Hayward wasn't like, wheel out the body, Vision, touch this, come in here. I mean, maybe that would have made more sense. I don't know. So what are the big questions that we have left for the final episode? There are so many. The multiverse. Are we doing this or what? We're definitely doing the multiverse for Spider-Man. Does something in Spider-Man start the multiverse? I mean, Wanda is supposed to play into that, as is Doctor Strange. So we got to get that storyline going. Also, where the heck is Ralph that she kept mentioning this whole time? Also, who the heck is Evan Peters? We got to solve this. Are we bringing back the X-Men or not? From the Fox movies. What's that book that they spotlighted last episode? How did Wanda create Billy and Tommy? Are we done with that? Did they just explain that away by saying she can spontaneously create life? Then also, were Wanda and Fietro mutants? Or was Wanda just a witch? Can we get some full clarification on that? Are we, what's going on here? What's going on with Dottie? And again, who was the witness protection person? There's a lot to be solved here, and there's only one episode to do it. I don't know how they can, but I hope that I'm proven wrong. I'm looking forward to. I hope they just do a fantastic job buttoning this all up and sending us on our way for Spider-Man 3. So what did you think? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.